I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater.
Admiral Nelson designed and built the Seaview to be the most advanced research and military capable sub on the planet, and he succeeded beyond anybody's grandest dreams. Now he's back at the drawing board, and he's built another sub that's meant to withstand depths down to 4,300 feet. The Polydor has been put through every test imaginable, and it's ready for the real thing. A hand-picked crew from the Seaview will operate her, with Captain Anders in command.
Steady, Connor, steady. Hold diving attitude 12.6 now, huh? Hold it now. This is the Polydor calling Nelson Marine Institute. Polydor to Nelson Marine Institute. Diving attitude 12.6. Depth 3,800 feet.
Some of the men seem to be getting a little rattled. Anders hasn't reported that yet.
When you reach 4,000 feet, adjust attitude to 14.9.
Relax, Airman. She'll do almost everything the Seaview will do. That's what you designed her for.
I know, but our entire underseas program depends on the success of Polydor.
I'm not sure who the suits are, but there are those on the surface who insist that humans can't handle being this deep under the ocean, and the United States should cease all attempts to explore the depths of the sea. And I suspect these two never had children because they don't seem to understand that Nelson is kicking his baby out of the nest and hoping it'll make it in the real world. Any caring parent who's had a child move out understands how he's feeling, which is why I'm sure these two shot blanks back in the day.
What's the condition of your men? If there's any question, level off now.
Everything's okay, Admiral. All's fine. Approaching 4,100 feet. All systems operational. Connors! Connors, watch that trim. Somebody give me a hand over there.
Connor appears to be having trouble staying on task. Maybe you should replace him. But Connor is just the beginning.
Jets, get back there. Get back to your station.
Change attitude. Confirm at once.
Get back there.
They're inside a sealed tube nearly a mile underwater. Where do they think they're going? The Admiral can't raise Anders on the radio now, but for some reason he can hear everything that's happening on the sub.
Anders! Anders! Anders!
Including that. Two-way radios don't work like that, but how else are we going to send him on an hour-long guilt trip? He calls all the men on shore leave back to the boat and starts making preparations to go look for the wreckage of the Polydor. He has to know what happened. Those two suits are from a congressional committee. The committee thinks man can't operate at those depths without losing his marbles.
I know we can. Unless your committee takes away our tools, if you do that, you'll be surrendering untold wealth in minerals, food, and scientific information to other countries with greater courage and more vision.
Nelson is sure his design was good and his men were equally good, which is why he's determined to find out what went wrong.
We'll withhold judgment while you investigate on the condition that you take someone with you as a trained observer.
Trained in what?
Human emotions. Psychology.
Dr. Arthur Kenner is a pioneer in the study of the psychiatry of stress.
They already went over the Admiral's head and arranged for the doctor to be on board so he can analyze the men's reactions during the dive.
Now, if a potentially dangerous emotional crisis should occur, he has the authority to call off the mission.
Enough authority to countermand the Admiral's orders?
On technical matters, no. On emotional matters, yes.
They don't have much choice. Dr. Kenner will join them in the morning before they depart.
As you can see, before exposure to the fear gas, the cat reacts to the appearance of the mouse in the predictable manner. And now, we introduce the gas. And you will observe that the effect is such as to totally reverse the most instinctive processes.
He does research into fear, what it is, what causes it, how people react to it, all that good sciencey stuff. So he's created a fear gas that will induce different levels of terror depending on the dosage. What could possibly go wrong?
I've been doing a lot of thinking about our fear gas, Doctor. It seems about ready for human application.
Not quite. As you know, Martin, fear in the lower animals is based on simple survival instinct. However, human fear is far more complicated and personal.
Our man Martin Davis there seems unduly interested in how the gas affects humans, and Dr. Kenner is brushing it off. He says it's not ready.
Have you decided yet about taking an assistant?
I spoke to the committee about it, and they left a decision up to me.
Well, with 125 men to observe, you'll need some help. I'd very much appreciate the chance to go along.
I must admit you would be of help. Can you be ready at 6 a.m.?
No problem.
Fine. Well, then lock up, meet me in the morning, and I'll make arrangements to include you in the party.
Lloyd Bochner is probably my favorite bad guy of all time. He had it all, the look, the voice, the bearing, that expression that says he's your friend, but he just might cut your throat for the right price. I'll watch him in anything. Dr. Kenner is a bit of an oddity. Edgar Bergen was not a dramatic actor. He was a consummate comedian who made a career out of being a bad ventriloquist. He taught himself to do it. He did get a few lessons from a pro along the way, but you could always see his lips moving. His most famous dummy was Charlie McCarthy. Charlie would often make fun of Edgar for moving his lips, and audiences loved it. He had another well-known dummy named Mortimer Snurd. If you're a fan of Jeff Dunham, he was kind of the Bubba J type, not too bright and only about half there, except without the drinking. One of the most amazing things about Edgar Bergen was, from 1937 to 1956, he was on the Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen show doing his ventriloquist act. What's so amazing about that? It was a radio show. A ventriloquist act on radio, and he made it work. Audiences ate it up. I'm more than a little surprised to see him here because this is the only dramatic role I've ever seen him in. He didn't do that much television, at least not as an actor. He appeared on variety shows and such doing his act and did a handful of other roles. He was one of America's most beloved performers. It's too bad he couldn't find a way to fit Charlie McCarthy into his suitcase for this trip. As eager as he was to join the expedition, we know that in a show like this, that can only mean one thing: he has evil intentions. He has a little tape recorder with a box attached and a special mechanism for releasing the gas. He tucks the canister away in it and puts the whole mess in his attaché case.
You're late.
Kenner just left. The trip is on. He boards Seaview in the morning.
Did he agree to let you come along?
Without hesitation.
And the fear gas?
Got all we need. One container. Enough to turn Nelson and his crew into panic-stricken madmen.
As Admiral Nelson suspected, the goal is to get the United States to abandon exploration at depth. When they do, his country will move in and reap all the benefits that the U.S. was too timid to go after. Martin will be exposed to the gas like everyone else, but he says knowing the gas is the source of your fear is sort of an antidote to its effects. If you know it's the gas, the fear is easy to fight off. Every so often, it makes that noise and releases a little bit of the gas. That way, the fear doesn't come on all at once. It appears gradually as if it were natural. That's what happened on the Polydor. He hid a similar mechanism on board it. But for their plan to work, the Seaview has to come back. That's where Dr. Kenner and his authority to abort the mission come in. It's a fairly complex plan, but barring something unforeseen, it should work.
You're right next door, Dr. Davis.
Air revitalizing?
Yes. It's the system that purifies and recirculates the air in the sub. It allows us to stay submerged for an indefinite length of time.
Air revitalizing. NASA just calls them scrubbers, but as we know, more syllables solves just about everything. But he's not just a spy and a saboteur, he's also a psychologist. And it's time to start rabble-rousing.
I'd like a chance to be able to talk to as many of the crewmen as I can. Dr. Kenner wants me to prepare something of a psychological profile on them.
I'll arrange it. It'll have to be based on their duty schedule. We're a little short-handed.
Yes, so many of your men were lost on the Polydor, weren't they?
He'll mention the Polydor a lot. He knows how to push men's buttons.
Tell me, sailor, you must have had a lot of buddies on the Polydor.
Yeah, a couple.
Tragic thing. Any chance they're still alive?
No.
Like that.
Does it frighten you to be going down 4,500 feet in an eggshell?
Well, sir, I never thought about it that way.
And that. He's planting seeds like that in all the men's minds. Meanwhile, the Admiral has been locked in his cabin since they got underway, and he's ordered the ship rigged for silent running. Captain Crane would like to know why.
Because I don't know what happened to Polydor out here. I'm taking no chances with Seaview.
She couldn't have been attacked. Not at that depth.
Perhaps not, but maybe it was sabotage. There's no reason to check the stores by the board. Almost anything could have been planted in that sub.
He's checked everything about the Polydor multiple times, and he knows the sub wasn't the problem. As a scientist, as well as the one who sent those men down there, he has to know the whole story. Elsewhere, Davis has found an opportunity to plant his machine in the air system, and it goes to work. The Admiral has been showing Kenner and Davis around, and he says, right now we're in a trench that goes down 8 miles.
8 miles? How far down do you intend to go, Admiral?
As far as necessary to find Polydor.
But even the Seaview can't handle the pressure at 48,000, so if the wreckage is below 4,500 feet, they won't be finding it.
What?
Do you believe that men can function under the continual threat of a ghastly death?
Well, death, we're all facing death. I won't let that happen, though. I could cancel this mission. I could abort this dive.
Only on sufficient grounds, Doctor.
But we can't go much deeper. We can't go much deeper. We can't.
The doctor seems to be getting a little irrational.
3,750 feet, sir.
How much farther, Captain? Settle down, Pryor. I don't like this any more than you do.
In fact, a lot of the men are getting irrational. They've been listening to the magnetometer for any sign of metal on the bottom that might be the remains of the Polydor.
Change heading to 209 degrees.
209 degrees.
I make out metal contact about 300 feet below.
It could be, I'm not sure.
You better shape up, sailor. You're as much a part of this mission as anyone else on the sub.
It's his job to listen to it and make sure. But everybody's starting to get a little shaky, including the Admiral.
Admiral. Take it easy. This man's obviously unnerved.
And you're not helping any.
I'm simply trying to be realistic. You can't continue to ignore the fact that these men, all of them, are afraid. Deathly afraid.
Well, being afraid is no crime or a sign of weakness, Doctor. Only a fool would deny this danger here.
The best thing he could do is order Davis to shut his pie hole. As he said, this guy's pot stirring is making things worse. And yes, Admiral Nelson is also afraid. He's not ashamed to admit it. But his fear isn't what our saboteur expected.
My big fear is not death. That's always with us one way or another. The men are used to it and so am I. But we're not used to failure, Doctor. And that's what scares me, the chance that this mission might fail when I know that it has every reason to succeed.
Which is to say the fear gas is having the opposite effect on him that Davis wanted. He's more determined than ever to complete the mission and solve the mystery.
Admiral? We must be approaching our crush depth by now.
What's our reading?
4,300 feet, sir.
Continue dive.
No, go back, please. I order you to go back. Admiral, did you hear me? I order you to go back.
I order you to your cabin, Doctor, right now.
The doctor has authority to end the mission based on the psychological problems he sees in the crew. But he's the only one with a psychological problem at the moment, so his authority doesn't apply. Davis continues to try and subvert things, but he's interrupted. Thank God for small favors.
Metal contact confirmed. Maybe 150 feet down.
Activate nose camera.
This trench goes down to 48,000 feet. How could there be anything at this depth?
Probably a ledge.
They're at the sub's crush depth, but the Admiral has to get close enough to see what it is. And he's the boss.
All stop. Level off.
We've got to get in closer.
Admiral, we're at crush depth. We can't go this deep.
Closer, Captain.
All ahead. Dead slow.
They finally see it. A piece of the hull, not much. The Admiral says we'll need to break out the diving bell and bring some of it aboard for analysis.
They think they found something. It might be at Apollodor. On the ledge right out there.
Anders. Hendley. All of them. So close you can almost...
Some parts of the boat are starting to buckle under the pressure. That's what those noises are. Let's get this done and get out of here.
One of them's still alive. One of them's still alive. This time he's still in there. He's still alive.
Getting out.
The gas is at full strength now, and the machine continues to spew out more every few minutes. Admiral Nelson says, take her up to 3,500 feet and level off. Let's check the damage.
It's difficult to accept, Captain, but fear takes many forms, and it's always destructive, even in a man like Nelson. You have to take over, Captain, for the sake of your crew and of the Seaview itself. He'll push us down to destruction if you don't. We're in your hands now, Captain.
The damage report is fairly minor, but Captain Crane tells the Admiral, we need to end this. The men can't take it.
I see. What do you propose?
Surface now. Maybe go down again when they're in better shape.
I'll make that decision, Captain.
When will that be, and how will you know? They have a big argument, but of course the Admiral wins. Once repairs are completed, they head back down to see about that wreckage. Davis is freaking out. His plan is not working. Time to see Dr. Kenner and try to get him to force his authority on the Admiral. But Dr. Kenner is a little preoccupied.
Oh, Martin.
Dr. Kenner, those officers are acting like madmen. You've got to stop them.
Look at me. I'm something of a madman myself.
You have the authority to abort this mission. Use it before they murder all of us.
You're afraid too, aren't you?
With Nelson and Crane in charge, we're all afraid. And you're the only one who can do anything about it.
Scared to death. And I don't know why.
His hands are shaking so bad he can't hold anything, and his heart rate is like a hummingbird's. He says, it's as though I'm feeling the effects of my own fear gas.
Well, that's hardly possible.
And a good thing, too, or we'd all be dead.
That's why it's not ready to use on humans. It's unstable. After 8 hours, it turns to a deadly nerve gas, and the 8 hours are just about up. If everybody on the sub dies and the sub itself implodes like the Polydor did, the whole plan goes to you-know-where, and most likely so does he. It's time for our suave, cool bad guy to panic. Rather than find a long bar or a big wrench or something to reach it with, he climbs in there and fumbles with it until it finally falls off that ledge and disappears. That's what panic does. As many of you know, I'm an experienced scuba diver. And you know what kills more divers than anything else? Panic. One of the first things they teach you in basic scuba training is, if something goes wrong, stop, breathe, think, breathe, then act. My wife and I have both experienced the need to do this, and that's why we're still around. In any situation, panic destroys. If you can keep your cool, you can survive the average crisis. If you panic, I guarantee somebody will compare you to a chicken with its head cut off. You don't want that. I may or may not get this past the copyright bots, but I really want to show you a truly great actor doing what he does best. As I said, Lloyd Bochner is one of my favorite bad guy character actors, and this is why. 2 minutes ago, he was Joe Cool, planting seeds of fear in people's ears. Suddenly, he's Peter Panic, faced with his own imminent mortality and going off his nut. I love this guy.
Stand by to dive. Dive. Dive.
The order to dive has suddenly snapped him back to reality, and he knows what he has to do. Put that vent cover back on before they charge him for it. At right around 4,500 feet, they've found the wreckage again. The Admiral wants a closer look. Not that close. Who's driving this thing?
Port forward, trim tank valve jam. Can we hold trim and blow ballast to surface?
No, no, valve's frozen.
They'll send Curly and some other men down deep into the mechanism to try and unjam whatever he said with a chain and a come-along. I don't pretend to understand the jargon. When they start talking all that stuff, I hear this.
Captain, you must surface immediately.
Engine room. How it...
You must surface now. That's an order, Captain. Dr. Davis, why must we surface now?
Note how calm the Admiral is. I think he just put it all together.
Because if you don't, we'll all die.
Die?
Why? Why will we die?
I put a gas device in the air circulating system.
He explains what the gas is and what it does, and the 8 hours are up.
Is that what happened to Polygon?
Tell me. Yes.
He was right, it was sabotage. He's vindicated for all the good it does him at the moment. If he can't get to the surface and make this guy confess, it won't matter. And now he gets to explain to Davis that they can't surface, the controls are jammed thanks to that collision.
Must be a way. There must be. There must be something. Please get him out of here.
Snap, he's gone to Neverland. His brain can't handle the fact that he's going to die, even though eventually it happens to all of us. The closest I've come so far was 3 years ago when I had a heart attack. I've talked about that in a couple of videos. I'm not afraid of dying. I know where I'm going and how and why and who's taking me, and that's a settled issue with me. No, what I'm afraid of is leaving my family without me. Our family is somewhat patriarchal, and since I'm the only male, guess who gets that title? But it's by everybody's choice. My wife and I are a team, and we make decisions together, but when something needs figuring out, fixing, or lifting, we call on Daddy. I'm deathly afraid of leaving them without that. I suspect Dr. Davis never had a family. He was too busy becoming a big shot and then becoming a spy. He should have found himself a good woman and settled down. It worked for me. Admiral Nelson and Dr. Kenner come up with a plan. First, shut off the air revitalizer and subsist on what air they have at the moment. Second, heat the place up so the gas rises. Turn the Seaview into a sweatbox. It's working for the time being while Curly and the others work on that thingamadoodle. Besides the heat, the air is getting thin and the boat is approaching 5,000 feet. That means they can surface and air the place out. I do wonder who gets to crawl through the ductwork and find that tape recorder, but that's not our department.
Pure, unrevitalized air. Just like Mother used to breathe.
Just talk with Washington, Lee. The FBI will be waiting to pick up Davis when we dock.
Fine. How you feeling, Doctor?
Guilty. Terribly guilty. Dr. Davis, the fear gas, all my doing.
He's not wrong, and I don't know why he invented that stuff in the first place. In 1964, let's see, President Kennedy had just been killed and Lyndon Johnson was trying to figure out how to be president. The Civil Rights Act passed and sparked race riots all over the country. We had just come off the Cuban Missile Crisis and faced the threat of nuclear annihilation every minute of every day. If he wanted to study fear, all he had to do was gather some people together and turn on the evening news. There'd be plenty to study. When the Beatles came to America that same year, some people were even afraid of them. But that was because the music made their butts shake in ways that they considered inappropriate.
I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater.
Admiral Nelson designed and built this... Okay, microphone up. All right. Admiral Nelson got a few lessons from a pro. From a plo. The goal is get the United... Say all the words. He had a similar mechanism. Yeah, the word is analysis, even though the script says analyst. He's so bad he can't hold anything. If it implodes like the Polydor is, good grief, what was that? If he can't get to the surface. Admiral Nelson and Dr. Kemmer, the threat of nuclear. I can say nuclear.